The house was in Leesburg, Virginia, on a very small street. Leesburg did not have very many people. And so he went in and looked at the house, and he said, I think I would like to buy this. And he called me up and he said, Martha, I think you're really going to like this house. There was a heating grate that was open in the floor of the front hall. A floor furnace that didn't have a top on it. And he said, Martha, I think you will find that this house is going to be really lovely when we fix it up. It had no heating ducts or anything, so the heat would go up the 6 chimneys and go straight out the roof. So we put in ductwork. So it took years to fix it to where we could have people come in. And the things that would start happening, the stairs that were creaking going up to the 3rd floor and down to the 2nd floor and going past our bedroom door and things like that, were just things that we thought were just the house making noise. And when I went down and researched it, I got it back when it was built in 1811. Well, I went down to the museum in town and pulled out the deed books to try to discover how many people had lived there. And in the 211 years, I guess, there were only 35 couples that had actually owned the house. It was just one of those places that would have things happen. And you would say, well, it's the 3 boys on the 3rd floor or whatever. And they would just run up and down the stairs or whatever. But because it was a drop from the 3rd floor down through the stairway, you could look from the 3rd floor all the way down to a church pew that was on the 1st floor, and you could drop things from the 3rd floor down, and it would land on the church pew on the 1st floor. So there were times that I decided to do sound at the top of the stairs, and that's when I heard skirts swishing at night and things dropping from the 3rd floor and landing on the pew. And I'm going, what the heck is this? And then, as I said, I went by the basement. I would turn around and the light would be going through the transom from the basement. And I would open the basement door and turn the light off, walk away, and then turn back on. So finally, I would walk away looking at it, and it would never turn on until I turned my head away. And that's when I went up and said, this is it. I know you're down there. Don't do it anymore. It wasn't until I saw a woman standing at the top of my stairs that I decided I would research who it was going to be. And I came in the back door and went around the corner and looked up to the first landing of the first set of stairs. And it was a backlit silhouette of a woman standing at the top of the stairs, because the light from the back stairs would actually come up behind her because she was forward on the steps. And I couldn't tell who the woman was, but when I said, who is it? She turned and walked through the door back down the back stairs. So that's when I decided I was going to try to find out who the woman was that I saw. And when I got to the deed book, and in the 1860s, the Thompson family lived there. And he decided he was going to join the Civil War. And he left the business of the home with the local banker. And the local banker died. And there was a 19-year court case for the woman to get it back in her name. And that is why I think it was Eliza, because she just had to work for 19 years to get the house back in her name. And I don't think she's ever left.
Her name was?
Eliza Thompson. So once I started naming her, then she started doing things like the lamp, the swaying of the lights, the walking into the living room, the poking me in the arm, saying, "Martha." And that's what I think, why I think it's her. I mean, I don't know, but when I studied it and realized that she had worked 19 years to get it in her name, I just don't think she has ever left. This young man, whose name was Jose Nuncio Cantera, and he wanted to live with us just so he could spend 4 years in the United States to decide if he wanted to be an American citizen or a Mexican citizen. And he would come in at night and poke me in the arm and call me Mrs. Lynch. And then Eliza began to poke me in the arm and say, "Martha, well, you're asleep." And then when I'd raise up, there'd be nobody there. So she was doing the same type of thing that he did to wake me up. On the first floor landing, I would lose my car keys or would put them down somewhere. And I would say to her, "I've lost my car keys. They were right here on this landing. I want them here again." And I'd go away and come back, and there they'd be. I had some maps from the Battle of Ball's Bluff, which was north of town, and I would get those newspapers and hang them on the wall. I wanted newspapers that related to the Battle of Ball's Bluff, which was only about 10 miles north of our house. And then some from Middleburg, Virginia, and other places that were from Leesburg area. And I got other newspapers. So I put them up. She would take them off the wall. I never saw them taken off the wall, but they were off the wall, as if they'd been sliding down the wall. But because they weren't laying in the hall, it would just moved off the wall down when I would come down in the morning. And they would be lined up the way they should have been hanging on the wall. And so I said to Kelly, I said, "They're off the wall again." And he said, "Mother, take them to the dining room table and lay them down and find out what order they are stacked up," which is what I did several times, and they were always starting with the Battle of Ball's Bluff was the first one that got hung, and then others for the Leesburg area. Then finally, I would go in and hang them on the order that was placed on my dining room table several times, and once I did that, they never came off the wall again. Hanging on the back wall, going back down the back stair, I had a collection of about 300 antique hats that I had placed on the wall from all different eras, for 1940s, 1810, 1960s, riding hats for women who rode side saddle, mourning hat for women who were in mourning, and they had the black hat with the ties under the chin, and it was just very interesting because those would fall off the wall. I had a son who had taken a copy of the newspaper clipping to his school, and he didn't bring it back. And I asked him from the bottom of the back steps, I'd holler up to him and I'd say, "Where is the clipping that I gave you to take to your school about the Civil War?" And every time I'd say the word Civil War, the light in the downstairs hall would come on. And I said to him, he was on the 3rd floor, and I said, "Come down here and stand at the top of the stairs. And when I say this certain word, you are going to see something happen down here on this light." And I'd say, so I came down and I said to him, "All right, here comes the word, Civil War." And the light would come on, and he said, "Mother, I don't want to hear this." So then once people would go to the back stairs and say the word Civil War, and the light would come on and start to sway. And then the hats start falling off the wall. I had another older woman who came and stood down there, and she said, "I don't believe in the Civil War." And when she said it, all the hats came down backstairs. And she said, "Okay, I'm not going to say that ever again." But it was just, so whenever people would sit in the dining room and you could see through the back hall and you could see someone say Civil War, and the light would come on and start to sway. And then I hope they do it to the people who bought the house. Well, in the living room, you would sit down on the sofa and would actually see the seat next to you depressed if someone sat down beside you. Then when they would get up and walk in front of the fire, it was if someone was standing in front of the fire and blocking the heat. And then you'd look up, and then the back hall light would be swaying, and the light would be turning on. Well, going through the back hall would take you to the back staircase, and you could go through the back hall from the dining room into the back hall, into the living room, to the front door. And there was no pet who would go through the back hall. They would always go around the other side. I had a dog that walked all the way around from the back room kitchen. There'd be food inside the pantry room, and they wouldn't go there. They'd go all the way around to the living room to come to the back hall. Patrick lived on one 3rd floor bedroom, and Michael lived on the other 3rd floor bedroom. And Michael, who was there cleaning maybe 6 months ago, said when he was there cleaning out Tom's office, which was in between the 2 bedrooms on the 3rd floor, in Patrick's room there was a doorway into the attic, and you could hear footsteps come out of the attic. And he could hear things moving in Patrick's room. And so when he tried to get in, he could not get in. So we went around and went through the attic into Patrick's bedroom. And there was all these things that had been moved in front of the door, so you could not get in. And so we had to move trunks, mannequins, arms, legs, body, everything that had just been stacked in front of the door. We had many people who have come and lived in the house. They've all experienced having someone walk into their bedroom or seen her or whoever it was, but a woman. Kelly, who was about 2 or 3 years old, he lived on the second floor in a bedroom, and he would talk to me in the morning about the lady that he saw at the end of his bed. And I would say, "What lady?" And he said, "Well, she's standing at the end of my bed every night, looking down at me." Well, one of the things that we've always done for 32 years is have the house open for the museum as a way to earn money for the museum. And it was a way that we could participate and let the house pay for some of the things that went on at the museum. And they would have docents that would come in and talk about things in the rooms, pictures or furniture, where does this furniture come from, or whatever. And things would happen to them while they were talking. And when Tom and I would never stay, so we didn't want to make them think that we were making the noise on the third floor. But one docent had a broom handle hit the bottom of her stairs that she stood on the first floor, and bang and bang and bang and bang while she was trying to talk. Things that floated down from the third floor through the opening of the stairway. It was an open staircase for 3 floors that you could throw things from the third floor and have it fall, and that they would float down and land on a docent's shoulder, a lace handkerchief that was in a drawer on the third floor or whatever. But then when we'd come home, and they'd start telling us the things that had happened to people who had come, people who had come into the house and was standing in the music room and would have someone poke them on the shoulder or move their hair or brush their clothes that was behind them standing. So it was always experiences that the docents would pass on to us when we came home.